What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the top most overrated fighter in each division inside the UFC. Every single division has got someone who is rated a tiny bit higher than they really should be. Some guys it's more pronounced than thought. Some guys it's like the number one contender. They've kind of got themselves up to a spot that, is kind of a flukish spot. Or there's other guys who just are awful in the division. I don't even know how they got where they are. So today I just want to kind of discuss every single fighter that's a tad bit overrated in each division and kind of give my reasons why and tell you guys why this fighter genuinely is rated a little bit too highly. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified about UFC content releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's jump into the most overrated fighter in each UFC division. Starting out the UFC Flyweight division, the most overrated fighter in my opinion is Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi just fought Brandon Moreno after like a year and a half hiatus. He's had a bunch of different problems, but those problems don't make him overrated or not. He beat Kai Kara-France in a main event in, I think it was May or early June of 2023, and that was an absolute robbery for Albazi to win. Everyone thought Kai Kara-France should have won that event, and ultimately he didn't end up getting decision victory. Albazi was stepped into a fight with Moreno, got absolutely outclassed in there, and has truly shown that he didn't have the skills to compete with the top UFC flyweights. I think Amir Albazi's position is incredibly overrated compared to who he should be facing. I think Amir Albazi should be kind of in that number 8 to 5 rankings in the UFC flyweight division, considering that that division isn't as deep as it should be. But I think that there's a lot of guys who are better than Amir in the UFC flyweight division currently. Amir Albazi's going to get obviously he's going to get a couple wins and he's still going to be relevant in the flyweight division. But for him to be the quote-unquote number one contender at one time and to be in the position to fight someone like Brandon Moreno and get absolutely starched out there is incredibly overrated in my book. Next, in the UFC Bantamweight division, Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, is the most overrated fighter, and I will tell you why. Sean O'Malley just lost his belt at UFC 306 against Merab Dvalishvili, but you look at his win against Aljamain Sterling, a great win. He had a kind of not a fluke victory over Peter Yan, but a very close split decision victory that was a very, very competitive fight that a lot of people think that he truly lost. Now, I can't sit here and say that he lost 100% because I do see a way that Sean O'Malley did win that fight, but genuinely, I understand that a lot of individuals think O'Malley shouldn't have been put in that UFC title picture. Once he fought a really good grappler like Merab, he got absolutely bodied, losing that fight, in my opinion, 46-49, only winning that last round because he hit Merab with a pretty good teep kick with like a minute left in the fight. Sean O'Malley's wrestling ability wasn't that great, and it hasn't been put on display considering that his only title defense was against Marlon Chito Vera, who is overrated in himself as well. But I think right now Sean O'Malley probably is the most overrated fighter in the bantamweight division, considering that, yes, he had a great road to the champion, but it was kind of a fluky road there because he beat Peter Yan in a very close fight, yes, but he was the number 11 ranked fighter, and he kind of fought some favorable matchups, although the Sterling win was incredible, fighting Chito Vera and then losing to Merab. It just shows that Sean O'Malley has incredible holes in his game, and I don't know if he's going to be able to regain that title anytime soon. In the UFC Featherweight division, I believe Yair Rodriguez is the most overrated fighter. He's only fought once this year, and that was against Brian Ortega in the co-main event of Mexico City. In that first round, he got the 10-8 round. He absolutely went out there and was piecing up Brian Ortega, but as that fight kept going, he just wasn't adjusting, and Ortega was, and that's how it led to Ortega getting the, I think it was either a Darce or I think it was a Darce choke, actually, in that third round. Ortega looked really good in there. That was his first fight back from injury after busting his shoulder out from Yair. But Yair Rodriguez is an interim champion for a reason. He's still a good fighter. I just think in the featherweight division, he's not going to go out there and wow and get another title shot. Yair Rodriguez, yes, is a very good fighter, but people think of him as one of the best fighters in the featherweight division. I take a lot of guys even below him to beat Yair, considering that he's got a lot of holes on his game, and considering in the ground that Alexander Volkanovski fight. And I understand Volk is one of the best people out there, but he got absolutely thrown around the octagon. He just looked physically weak out there. Yair definitely is the number 4 fighter in the UFC featherweight division for a reason, but I do think that there's a lot of other guys who are more underrated who could go up there and beat Yair to possibly take his spot very soon. In the lightweight division, I'm going to go with Benoit Saint Denis. And the reason I'm going to go with Benoit is he's fought twice this year. And he fought at UFC 299 against Dustin Poirier, a very big jump up in competition. I think he was rushed a little bit too much there. But when he fought Renato Moicano at UFC Paris in that main event, he was shown to have a lot of different technical skills that were lacking in his grappling game. Now, he's a very persistent fighter. He's a very good fighter. And genuinely, I think that he's got a lot of the intangibles to go out there and win these different fights. He's incredibly strong. He's got pretty good cardio. He's a French Marine. He is an incredible person, but that technical ability that he possesses in the striking game, the smarts and what able to do in some situations, isn't the greatest, considering that he hasn't been training MMA for as long as a lot of these other fighters. You know, Benoit Saint Denis still has a great career going forward, and he could possibly be a top 5 fighter out there. But Benoit does have some challenges to face in the very near upcoming future, considering that Saint Denis has got a very stacked division in front of him and a lack of grappling and just overall UFC skill compared to a lot of these other fighters. Like I said, he's got all the intangibles out there, incredibly athletic, got a heart of a lion, and all this different type of stuff. But once he can integrate the technical ability into his game, it's going to allow him to just be so much better in the UFC lightweight division. But until then, I think he's incredibly overrated. In the UFC welterweight division, I'm going to say Leon Edwards is the most overrated fighter. You know, Leon Edwards is kind of a point fighter, and I actually made a short about him yesterday. So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave that right here. But Leon Edwards just isn't that type of fighter who goes out there and gets the finishes all the time. I know he had that incredible finish against Kamaru Usman, but I don't think he was really looking for it rather than him just throwing the shot out there, because he did catch Kamaru Usman with a great left cross fake, which ultimately set up the left high kick. But Leon Edwards has been known as a point fighter his entire career. No matter what Leon Edwards has done, he has been a point fighter. Even in his championship run, that second fight with Usman, the fight with Colby, and all those other fights, he has been known as a point fighter. And I think that there was a big misconception when he won the title at UFC 278 and ultimately defended it at 286, defended it again at 296, and lost the title against Bilal Muhammad at 304. It was shown that once you put a little pressure on Leon, especially in that Bilal fight, it was shown that he was incredibly overrated. And not to say that Leon Edwards is a bad fighter, because he was a champion for a reason, but ultimately Leon Edwards' just kind of lack of, being able to put it on someone, lack of a killer instinct, truly makes him an overrated fighter. He's got all the skills. He's one of the best pad work fighters inside the UFC. He's absolutely got perfect technique. Just doesn't have that killer instinct to go out and utilize it. In the middleweight division, I have Marvin Vettori, and Marvin Vettori, I think, has fought once in the past 3 years, which is absolutely insane. The last fight that Marvin Vettori had, get this, was in June of 2023. That was against Jared Cannonier, and Cannonier had one of the most breathtaking performances I have ever seen. He landed the most middleweight significant strikes in history in a fight. He had 95 significant strikes in that second round alone, and it was an absolute beatdown for Cannonier upon Vettori. Now, Vettori was supposed to fight Brendan Allen in April this year, but it ultimately got canceled for whatever reason, and since then, he has not been heard of inside the UFC's middleweight division. And I do think that, yes, Marvin Vettori does have a good wrestling style, but you can't tell me that he's out here outstriking people. He beat Paulo Costa, and saying that he's the number 11th ranked fighter at this point, that's not saying that much. Marvin Vettori needs to get back in there and show everyone why he was a former title challenger when he fought at Israel Adesanya at UFC 263. And, I look at a lot of these different individuals and I see that he is, yes, a good fighter, but he's got to prove a lot more and show that he's still here, considering that he's fought once in the past 3 years. It's incredibly sad to see, and a lot of people thinking that Marvin Vettori is still a prominent candidate in the middleweight division. At light heavyweight, there's a lot of different guys who I don't think are overrated, but could be possibly considered here, but I'm going to go with the easy one and just talk about Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, I think, is an incredibly skillful fighter. The biggest things that make him overrated is his mind and his chin. Johnny Walker is a very technical fighter. He's very crazy, which I think gets him in some trouble. But I do think that if he was a little bit smarter to either understand how to conserve himself in certain aspects or understand that he's got a just weak chin on him, that would be able to ultimately help him for every single fight in the future. Johnny Walker, like I said, has the skills. He just doesn't understand that his chin is so awful, and he goes in there and brawls against all these guys. Like that Volkan Oezdemir fight, went in there and brawled, got knocked out. Went in there and brawled with Magomed Ankalaev and got knocked out. Brawled with Johnny Walker, or brawled with Jamal Hill and got knocked out. Johnny Walker just isn't the guy who is the absolute smartest, and he just understands that, yes, he has the skills, which is great, but he just doesn't have the chin behind him. And I think that lack of cognitive ability is really going to impact him for years to come inside the UFC, and that's why I don't think he's ever going to be a prominent figure inside the UFC light heavyweight division. And finally, at the heavyweight division, I'm going to go with Sergey Pavlovich. He's currently on a 2-fight losing streak. And yes, one of those fights was against Tom Aspinall, but the other fight was against Alexander Volkov, who apparently he was beating in sparring all the time. But he just got beat by simple leg kicks and strikes at that UFC Saudi Arabia co-main event. Alexander Volkov didn't do anything like absurd or crazy there that Sergey Pavlovich, wasn't able to stop. But genuinely, I just see that he got absolutely outplayed by Volkov in a lot of different fundamental categories. And that is incredibly concerning considering that Pavlovich, yes, he is one of the strongest fighters inside the UFC. He's probably got maybe the hardest punching power, in the UFC right now. But considering that he just really hasn't been able to fully get himself fundamentally sound and understand that you are going to have to kick. You can't just strike and box. That's going to be a big thing limiting him in the very near future. Sergey Pavlovich is a former interim title challenger against Tom Aspinall, and I'm not holding his Tom Aspinall fight against him, but in that Alexander Volkov fight, there was a lot of holes that were exploited, and I truly think that Sergey Pavlovich does have a lot of holes in his game, and I do think he's a little bit overrated. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think below about all the most overrated fighter from each division. Flyweight, I got Amir Albazi. Bantamweight, I got Sean O'Malley. Featherweight, I have Yair Rodriguez. Lightweight, I have Benoit Saint-Denis. Welterweight, I have Leon Edwards. Middleweight, I have Marvin Vettori. Light heavyweight, I have Johnny Walker. And heavyweight, I have Sergey Pavlovich. I think that there's a lot of fighters who are overrated inside the organization, but these are the guys who come to mind first of being the most overrated fighter in their respective division. Overrated could be something that they're receiving too much hype for a certain thing that they've done, or they're just kind of thought to be better than what they are. I look at a lot of these guys, and there's a common theme, and that is a lot of fundamental mistakes for most of the fighters. And if it's not fundamental, it's usually a mind mistake, or just kind of not having that specific just intelligence to go out there and understand and recognize the situation. But ultimately, there's going to be an most overrated fighter in each division, and in my opinion, these are the most overrated fighter in each UFC men's division. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always notified about UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.